Okay, well, I think we are good to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is, and one thing I forgot to change. It is October, October 2024 to our October Core KPI webinar. Um, this webinar is on our absentee rate per day or just absentee rate overall. Can be a by day, by month, annual thing, but typically we're looking at a by day rate. And today I have a different co-host. So I am Aja with MaidCentral, and I'm joined by Victoria with MaidCentral. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you
Wow.
do at MaidCentral here?
Yeah, I am the implementation supervisor. So, me and my team basically get new partners started, help set up their instances, and teach them how to, do the main functions to keep cleaning houses and run their businesses.
Yes. So Victoria's been on the team for about a year and a half now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been working well, and Tom was not able to join today because he's taken some time off, much needed. And Victoria is gonna fill in for us. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. We always like to start with where upcoming educational opportunities are, and the big one of the year is coming up in just a little over a month. I believe we might have just ended the cutoff for early reservation or early sign up, but the ISSA show is in November 17th through 21st in Las Vegas. You can register at the ISSAshow.com, and Victoria and I will both be there. So
Yep.
definitely come on in. Tom and I are both speaking as well. We've got a bigger booth this year than we've typically had so that we can do some educational opportunities inside of our booth. Definitely love this event every year and learn so much and have a great time all at the same time. So we highly recommend it. Tom has been involved with ISSA um residential long time. Was, I believe, part of the founding groups before it. So he's been we're big supporters of ISSA, and we know that you get a lot of community industry having a nonprofit um industry association is a really, really great thing to be a part of if you're able to. If you're not a member, definitely can still come to convention, I believe. So, highly recommend it. Big convention, big things going on there. So, let's go ahead and jump right in. As usual, we'll go over kind of what the core KPIs are for anybody new that is joining us. And then we'll dive right into what the absentee rate is. Why is it important? How do we improve it? Um, I think we all feel the squeeze of absences, but sometimes don't make the connection of all the different things that technician absences can really impact. Um, and there's, of course, we want to value work-life balance and all of that in here. So this isn't, you come to work every single day, no matter what sort of strategies. That's not what we'll be talking about. It'll really be how do you make your environment a place that people would want to come to work for, or how to reduce those unplanned absences more than anything. So our core KPIs, we have 12 core KPIs. Um, some of them are things that we want to get bigger, and some are things that we want to have smaller. So bigger things being like our close rate. We want a higher close rate. We want that number to get higher. Or today's number is a number that we want to get smaller. It's our absentee rate. The smaller that number is, the better we're probably doing. We use these 12 KPIs because when you understand where you stand on those numbers, you know where you have the biggest room for growth. So we like to give, ranges for you guys to try and aim for, and get an idea of what's acceptable, what is going to help your business really propel forward. Because sometimes the hardest part of the task is knowing where to start and knowing where the problems lie. And um, when you have a lot of things on your plate, sometimes it's nice just to know that, all right, we've got 12 numbers. These six are looking good. These three are, we'll keep an eye on them. And then these three are the one that we really need to work on. That makes the next conversation so much easier. You can figure out those really obvious activities to improve those really specific KPIs. here are our different 12 KPIs, and we are running down this list. We've only got 2 webinars left after today, technician turnover per year and operating expense per month. If you've missed any of these and you're interested in them, we do save the recordings on our website. So if you go to maidcentral.com and under, I believe, the resources tab, there is a past events section, and past recordings. So you'll be able to find, there's a form that it takes you to just so we can see who's signing up for it. And then, or who's accessing that unlisted uh playlist on YouTube, and then you have access to it for forever. I'm so sorry. I have hair in my eye and it is driving me bonkers.
Of course.
Oh no. All right, 1 second. I'll let you guys look at the next slide while I do this for just 1 second. I can't I can't focus. Where did it go?
So your absentee rate per day is going to represent the percentage of scheduled workdays in which our cleaning staff members are absent, right? So the average is anywhere between a 4.7% and a 10.3%, with your goal. Go ahead, Aja.
You're good. Yeah, you're definitely good. So the goal being around 7% or less. Um, we see this number has gone down a lot in the last 9 months or so. I've really noticed a very distinct decrease on this number. So I think overall, what was it that they were referring to it, like the Great Resignation in the early 20s. Early 20s, that's fun to say. Sorry. That everybody was kind of talking about has definitely settled down. And people are sticking to where they're working a little bit better and showing up a little bit more. So turnover has gone down a little bit, and this absentee rate has gone down as well. So I say that 7% is definitely the goal, and being under that, but there's some wiggle room here, and we're seeing that number really pushing below 7% pretty consistently. The equation here for you guys, I want to make sure it's noticed that time off is being included in this calculation. So it's not just unexcused and excused absences. This is pre-planned time off as well. Because we really want to be able to, that is resources that are typically planned on that are not available for that day. Even though we have a longer period of time to plan around it, we still want to know how much do we need to overstaff, to account for the total days that people are missing, even if it's unplanned versus planned. We're really trying to harp on reducing unplanned absences. And half the time, what we're trying to do is reduce unplanned to increase planned absences. We still want people to take time off, but we don't necessarily want it to be morning of all the time because they forgot they had a doctor's appointment. We really want to play into, this is around planning your time off whenever possible. As always, we bring this back to our 3 stakeholders. So our company, our technicians, and our customers are the 3 stakeholders that we have to consider in the decision-making process for our businesses. So on this side, we're thinking it's hard to distinguish win-win opportunities for the company and the technicians. And I think that's where a lot of us struggle when trying to reduce absences is we make decisions that benefit the company, but they don't necessarily benefit the technicians in a way that positively impacts this number, or other things. It might negatively impact overall culture, things like that. And so when we're trying to consider these things, I want to keep it like extra forefront of mind that we need a win-win-win situation. The customers aren't a huge impact in this KPI. They are always being impacted, but the main decisions that we're going to be trying to making are going to be making bigger impacts on the company and the technicians. So, yeah, why is lowering your absentee rate important? I think we all think about the whirlwind that unplanned absences creates, having to move houses and last minute schedule changes and things like that. But where else does absentee rate impact us? Well, we're going to see impacts on our operational efficiency, our revenue stability, which is pretty forefront of mind as well, employee retention and I forgot the E. One of these days I'll have no typos in my presentations, but today is not the day. Um, Customer satisfaction and retention is impacted, and overall consistency, efficiency, and business reputation as well. So we'll go into each one of these to kind of see really what the value is in improving this number outside of just how it impacts your core KPI forecasting. So the first one we'll talk about is a big one, just overall operational efficiency. Um, we have schedule disruptions, increased workload, delayed services. When you have your schedule disruptive, it leads to last minute scheduling, rescheduling or cancellations, which is extra admin time. It just feels like a time waster sometimes when you're constantly having to adjust around sometimes the same individuals over and over again. That increases the workload of your remaining staff members. Even when we try to keep things even, once we start seeing really big impacts from technicians being out, there is still a squeeze of like, maybe we can fit one more house in here. It might not be happening every time somebody calls out, but often enough we'll be like, can we just fit one more house on this day? We'll split it between a couple of people, but we just want to get one more on there. That's just increasing that workload a little bit. And that can push for burnout when it's happening over and over again, and can also reduce your quality as well when people are starting to feel those initial effects of burnout. And then delayed services when you are trying to rearrange everything. You might not be able to start on time all the time. I think most of us get it down after a while, but there's still those days where we have enough people out that we're running a little bit behind today. We're gonna get there, but we're running a little bit behind. We had a lot of scheduling changes that we had to do, and that's just big impacts on consistency. So you'll notice that we've been talking a lot more about consistency over the last 3 core KPI webinars. And I realized that of the core KPIs that consistency impacts, it's all the red numbers can have benefits from increasing your consistency. So payroll percent to revenue, your skip rate, absentee rate, turnover, customer attrition, and even your monthly operating costs. So those are our 6 red core KPIs, and all of them are impacted by consistency. So you'll hear that a lot during today's webinar as well. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about here, Vic?
No,
Okay, cool. No,
you
you're good.
laid it out well. Yeah.
Good, good. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. All right. So overall customer satisfaction, service consistency and increased cancellations are things that we can see, are effects that we can see after when our absentee rate is higher. When we start to see things above that 7%, will there's more impacts on our customer satisfaction. They're going to have more inconsistent cleaning teams, so impacts on consistency, varying service quality. Even if everybody is trained to the same standards, we all have different things that we prioritize and do better than others, I guess. Not everybody cleans equally, to the same level of quality in all areas of a home. And when we are able to send the same technician to the same home every time, um, usually we are able to match the cleaning technician's skill set with the customer's desires. And when we have a mismatch, it becomes really obvious really quickly. But when we're having to shuffle houses around and different technicians are seeing different homes, there's going to be varying service quality. It's not necessarily always bad service. It's just the expectations and the desires of the customer misaligning with the skill set of the technician. They might be really, really good at dusting and cleaning bathrooms, but this customer is a floors person. They really want their floors done well, and this person cleans floors, but they're not always the most amazing. They're adequately cleaned, but they're not going to shine necessarily, if that makes sense. So, um, making sure that when we start to talk about strategies to reduce the absentee rate, think about the impact on your overall customer satisfaction. On the other side, when we start to see lots of absences, we tend to have to cancel jobs or move jobs, and that just frustrates customers. We can come up with ways to reduce the times that we're requesting that. We can keep a really good tracking system on it, but each time that we have to request a change for their services, it's just one little ding on our overall satisfaction with that customer.
I think also with increased cancellations, when you have a consistent technician, customers start to create a sense of trust. And if they aren't getting that technician that they trust, they may cancel on their end. And then there's a loss of revenue as well, because that they had a strong technician to customer relationship.
Absolutely. So, that's another big one as well, is that where's Jessica? I wanted to tell her about the thing that we talked about last week. That relationship is quality is more than just the cleaning service. It's also the like overall relationship that is built with the technicians and the company as a whole. So, it's not always just service quality that we're talking about. The service or the clean quality, the overall service quality includes the relationships as well. All right. And Julianne asked where we can find that report absentee rate per day. This is one of the core KPIs. So you can find this on the core KPI report. So under company and core KPIs is where you're able to find that report. Um, Otherwise, you can kind of calculate this out using the employee stats as well. So there is also a financial impact of absences. The obvious one of lost revenue when every time that we have to move a house to a different day, a house because we don't have enough technicians, that's revenue we can never get back. Once there's no way to put more revenue on a past day. Sure, you might be able to add that revenue to another day, but that day will never be able to have more revenue again. The day that passed at least. So that's the really obvious one. The other things that we can see is increased payroll costs. So there's a when your other technicians really have to cover for other people, there's increased risk for overtime. They typically have to work more hours, and overtime is expensive. It gets all the way, it really impacts that payroll percent to revenue pretty quickly. There's also impacts if you're having a high absentee rate, you're probably also going to have a little bit higher turnover as well because the um, actions that we take to improve absences are also the actions that we would take to improve turnover. Turnover is expensive, training is expensive. So when you have people out often, you're probably also having people quitting more often than you would want them to be. And that's just a double-edged sword of overtime and training costs. And then the last piece of financial impact is your administrative costs. Your administrators might be working the same hours, but the time that they're spending on rearranging schedules, communicating with technicians and customers are just indirect costs to the business where they're not able to work on growth activities quite as much. And it's very reactive activity, not proactive activity, which is where we really like to talk about all of our strategies are the attempt to be more proactive on impacting those KPIs. All right. So absentee rate and employee morale and retention. So team morale, burnout, and retention are all impacted by your absences. These are probably fairly like more obvious when you're actually, no, I would say this might be one of those things that is not so obvious when you're in the shuffle of having a lot of absences. Um, you're kind of like, well, we did it, we made it through it, but the lingering effects kind of come in waves. And I think the employee impacts are one of those extra waves. It's not that first impact of revenue no longer being on the day and having to cancel and move customers, but a few hours later or a few days later, that additional wave of burnout kind of hits your technicians a little bit later. Um, Your reliable employees can get really frustrated with people who are being unreliable if maybe things aren't being um, held to the same standards across the board, or maybe we get into a place where, man, we really want to enforce our attendance policy, but I'd rather them be here 3 days a week than none at all. I think we've all made that tough decision before or been in that tough spot before, and we have to remember that who does that benefit? Does that just benefit that technician? Is there a win benefit for the company, or is there a win benefit, or is that going to be an overall lose benefit for the company? Because anytime that we have a lose situation, then we're going to have a lose, lose, lose all the way around. Um, we can also see potential decreases to service quality when morale drops. So just kind of thinking about that. People who care, people who are have a high morale are people who care. When morale starts dropping, that ability to care starts to drop as well. We can't have good service quality when people don't care. So that kind of domino effect is really present here. Burnout. So we talked about burnout and having a heavier workload. Um, Included in this, we are really going to see burnt out technicians are just more likely to call out. And you're going to start seeing that trend of um, once somebody hits burnout and they don't have the time to recover, they stay in burnout for a little while. And that's just going to increase that absenteeism over and over again. And then it's going to domino effect on the next person who is picking up the workload of that person. So really, um, we're about to start talking about strategies. So it's not all the problems. We're not all just talking about problems today. I promise. We have some strategies for improve some things as well. So, helping to reduce that burnout by having different policies around absences can be really impactful. And then overall retention, it's going to create a negative working environment. People don't like to work for managers and admins who are constantly running around and looking like everything is burning all the time. And that's what we look like sometimes when there's a lot of call outs and we're in the morning and we're just like, "Ah, I can't, I can't handle anything else." But that's a negative working environment. It's really great when you can come in and everything feels like it is working as normal. And even though people called out, we're doing okay and we've leveled out the day really well. And it's just kind of that process, that impression of how the day is going to be, or maybe the day has been going, is really important to the overall working environment. Um, and then that additional pressure can push reliable technicians to seek other employment, which really sucks. It's not only that you're going to lose the people who aren't doing well, but the people who have been doing well don't love to feel that those impacts all the time, those negative impacts, or if the negative environment kind of sticks around longer than we want it to, that can really impact our great technicians in a way that we don't want. Juliana asked, do you find that employees who work every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. have frequent burnout? Um, I would say really focusing on cleaning time is kind of the important one here. So if you have a larger service area and they're spending more time driving than maybe cleaning, as long as the cleaning time stays in that like 6 to 7 hour range, I think that's kind of the important part, that they're not cleaning more than that amount of time. Um, I do feel like that there has been a trend, a shift in the like younger demographics on the value of work-life balance. So people are more apt to work less and make less money, and they're okay with that as long as they are able to do what they're wanting to do outside of work. So I think the younger generation that is coming into the workforce, like we're seeing more Gen Zs coming in, they will burn out with an 8 to 5, um, 5 day a week. I believe that they will. They would probably need either, an hour or so reduced off of the length of the day or a day reduced off of their schedule for them to have the ample amount of time to recover. Um, that's kind of my impression. I have been out of, day-to-day activities for a couple of years now, so I don't know. I don't think that it's changed drastically in that amount of time, but that would be my kind of thinking is that you're going to have some people where that's going to be great and they're going to do it just fine, but being able to have that flexibility is definitely one of our strategies here. How do you balance unlimited time off with unexcused absences? Tammy asked. I don't know why I did it backwards like that, but it's okay. Tammy asked. So, uh, really, the biggest thing with unlimited time off is that's pre-planned absences, and everything's a balancing act. It's not, people need to take time off. They have to have days that they aren't working. Um, all of us, if you haven't taken a vacation in a little bit, I'm talking to you as well. Um, so when you're trying to balance that out, it's not that we're trying to reduce the whole load of absences. We're trying to shift it from having more unexcused absences to having more planned time absences. So the companies that are giving unlimited time off are the ones that are really pushing on, you know, I want you to be here when you say you're going to be here, and kind of limiting that sick time um absences, if that makes sense. Do you have anything else to add there, Vic? I feel like I lost my train of thought just a little bit.
No, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think the idea of unlimited time off is to hopefully give them all the reasons to tell us when they're going to be gone to bring the unexcused rates down. So I think, yeah, I mean, as long as they're giving you some sort of notice and you have a standard for what kind of notice you need, it should hopefully help drive the call outs down since I can basically tell you when I need to be gone with an unlimited amount of time.
Exactly. Um,
And it looks
yep,
like that's what
Julianne.
Julianne said. Yep, she said that they do unlimited time off and they require a 2 weeks notice for those requests.
Yep, exactly. So that brings us right into our strategies to help reduce skip rates. Um, there's a couple of things on here that are kind of obvious, or like the ones that we jump on really quickly when we're trying to reduce some of these things, where it's just like, all right, we need a better attendance policy and we need to enforce it right now. That's only one. That's only one activity. There are many other activities that we can take on. So the first thing being competitive compensation, creating a positive and work environment. How do we shift that whirlwind I'm constantly doing something feeling into positivity of, yes, I'm constantly doing something, but I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it as a benefit for everybody, and I'm not gonna trickle down we're not gonna make this a negative thing. This is a piece of my job sort of mentality around it. Flexible scheduling, how to improve work-life balance or really make that a priority for your scheduling practices. Um, the obvious one, attendance monitoring and accountability, and then employee engagement and growth. Um, yeah, so we'll jump into each one of these. People like to be paid well. Um, and even though it is not often the actual reason somebody won't show up for their job or won't keep a job, they'll always come back to pay, right? It might not have been it's the value to what they're earning of their work life. So it's not necessarily that they're not being paid enough, it's that something else is not going well. And because that's not going well, I'm going to point that out that I'm going to just point out how much I'm being paid that this isn't worth the feeling that I'm feeling over here isn't worth what I'm being paid over here. Um, so this isn't just necessarily throw more money at people because that doesn't actually impact the morale all the way, but there are pieces that can help impact your absences that we can use here in competitive compensation. So fair wages, ensuring employees feel valued and fairly compensated for their work is just base level, good workplace practice. The next step of this is benefits and incentives. Show that their well-being matters by implementing things that make them feel valuable. So health benefits, paid sick leave, and attendance-based bonuses are all ways to do this. And you don't necessarily do all of this at once, or if you can't afford it as a company yet, that's okay. Coming up with some way to promote the activity that you want to see, or um the activity that you want to see with the money that you do have available to funnel back into um funnel back into the company. So what I mean by that is like an attendance-based bonus would be, you could do something like for everybody who had perfect attendance last month, we'll do a drawing for a paid day off. It's that they all get entered in, and each time that they get a month, their name gets entered in. Each time they have a streak, their name gets entered in multiple times. Something like that, where it's like you're only throwing an additional PTO day on the budget, but you're rewarding everybody who didn't call out in the same process by just being included. So financially, that's a very inexpensive benefit that people can earn without it being for everybody. And the next levels of that are going to be a monthly bonus to people that they get, an extra something, an extra, I don't even know what's a good option anymore. A gift card to uh, the local drive-through coffee place. Um, that could just be a really simple one. And then it can go into being more expensive options like weekly bonuses. Um, so it just feels like you're helping them feel like that activity of being at work actually matters and they can get something beneficial out of it beyond just their paycheck. Susan asked where to download these webinars. They are on maidcentral.com under resources and events. In that events menu, I believe there should be something called past recordings or past events, something like that. And then when you go there, it'll take you to a form to fill out, and then that will take you to the playlist on YouTube.
Something
Um,
that Matt Ricketts once said that has always stuck with me is when we're talking about like benefits or bonuses for your employees, it's like, what does your employees, what do they value? Do they value time off for that work-life balance, or do they value, gift cards? If they value more of that paid time off, then you know that that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck is by rewarding them with more vacation time versus cash or gift cards and stuff. So I think it's also good to know what your employees value the most.
yeah, exactly. This might be different by culture, and it's not implement all of these. It's you can try something for a little bit and see how it works, how the impact on our KPI of absentee rate is actually being affected. Um, and then the last one is paid time off. Uh, when we're really trying to switch from a call off culture to a planned absence culture, PTO is a big part of that conversation because they can, there's benefit now of taking time off. They still get paid for taking time off and planning that time off. Versus, well, if there's no difference between me saying that I'm going to take the day off tomorrow versus I'm going to take the day off in 2 weeks, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna do it tomorrow. I'll just get it done. That's kind of the not the mentality of everybody, but there's definitely a mentality of that comes up sometimes. Any questions here? I think we got all of those already answered. Okay. Fostering a positive work environment. So there's a few pieces of this, open communication, employee recognition, and team support. In open communication, we really want to make sure that we're addressing underlying issues that cause the extra stress that makes people want to call out. So sometimes this takes a little bit more effort than just upholding an attendance policy. It takes somebody paying attention to the activities of each technician and being able to tell when something isn't going as normal so that it can be addressed in a way that's positive and helpful. And then also having an open door policy or some way for technicians to come to you as well when they need their needs adjusted. Um, Employee recognition. This is where I always say that you want to create policies for your best behaviors, for the behaviors that you want, not create policies against the behaviors that you don't want. It's kind of the idea of working positively and proactively than reactively. So employee recognition is a big part of that proactive activity and rewarding the behavior that you want to see. So rewarding based on attendance and performance. The monthly drawing is an option there. Putting everybody's name out in your Slack channel who didn't call off that week. Just or hasn't called off in the longest period of time. So and so hasn't called off in 6 months. I just wanted to give her a shout out for being so reliable. Um, and acknowledging those behaviors publicly as much as possible. That can just help people want to be also publicly acknowledged for doing something right, but also being able to see, this is the activity that gets me. We're all dogs in the end. Um, we're all animals here. So this is the activity that gets me the thing I want to get. We just want to get good head pats. All right. So we'll copy the person next to us who's getting the head pats. And then team support, fostering a work environment that encourages teamwork. Even if you're running like remote solos where people aren't seeing everybody all the time, it's even more important that you're fostering some sort of team environment. That, when we're all struggling, we're all struggling, and we're all doing well, we're all doing well together. Um, Employees who feel supported by their managers are more likely to show up regularly. So if they all feel like, when I'm feeling tough, they're also feeling tough, and I know that they're doing everything that they can to make this better for me. Um, that reassurance is really powerful. All right, flexible scheduling. So just a couple of options here. This can be tough in our industry, but I do think it has value, particularly with younger generations, who are trying to really just make some money and um, live their lives at the same time. They are really are just more open to flexible part-time work than anybody before. They've just got different values down there somehow. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. But shift flexibility, um, just especially when a situation arises, allowing technicians to make their shift a little bit different than the norm. So maybe everybody works Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but you've got a technician who is only able to work 4 days a week. I'd rather have a good technician 4 days a week than no technician 5 days a week. And maybe that turns into their position being a little bit different. Maybe now they're a flex technician, or maybe if they can only work afternoons, they're the ones that are driving around all heaven's creation to help people at the end of the day. They're the trade-off there is that, yeah, you only work in the afternoon, but you're going to be our go-to driver person that's going to do kind of our afternoon running around. Um, and then also having ability for people to take partial days, for absences and stuff like that. Um, for doctor's appointments that you can take time without needing to take a full day off. And again, pre-planning that.
I think shift flexibility is also important when we are thinking about moms who have children. If we can foster a position where, and going back to consistency, if you just need to drop, your kids off at the bus, but you can consistently clean those same, 9 a.m. clients, that's a flexibility. That's a win for everyone, the customer with consistency, the company, and that technician versus not having them at all.
I love the mom shift, the 9 to 2:30 shift that's just working while the kids are in school. I love that. It works out so well. Particularly if you're doing solos where they're able to just drop them off and drive directly to their first house and then drive directly from their last house to pick up the kids. Um, it works out so well. And they're typically pretty reliable because not many places are going to offer that kind of flexibility, and we can. We have the ability to do that where other people don't. All right. So again, we want to have some good resources. Mom shift is a new thing for us. I hope it's going well for you, Tammy. Um, I've had a couple of good mom shifts in the past, and it really does. It works out really well, for the right people. Workload management. Don't overload the technicians. Even if people are out and you sometimes can squeeze that one more house on the day, that one more house of revenue is not going to be worth the overload that the technicians feel. Do it occasionally, very rarely, but don't make it a habit. That's kind of the important part. And if you do have to do it, make sure that you acknowledge it, with the technician. Hey, this is not a normal day. Um, we're really struggling right now. Let me know if this feels like too much. Like making sure that you're acknowledging it with them and giving them some kind of say in their own day. Um, Mental health support. This is really going to be more impactful as younger generations are coming into the business because mental health is way more prevalent in topics of conversation with Gen Z and millennials than they've ever been before. Um, and not even with that, but like in general, everybody is talking about mental health more than we ever have before, which is great because, well, we kind of need it. Um, but having additional resources like counseling or wellness programs, I've heard of, um, I think it might have been through even like Aflac who offers like a ongoing counseling additional thing to it, where it's not just life insurance, but it also is, or, workplace injury insurance or anything like that. But they also have, something where it's like you pay as a company and everybody gets a certain number of hours of extra counseling or something like that. Um, I think it's really beneficial to even just offer it. Not necessarily everybody's going to take advantage of it, but just the fact that it's there makes people feel supported. Um, and it helps reduce some of that stress related absenteeism without that falling on all the managers to talk people through their stress related issues. I used to do that a lot, and uh it's one of those things that having an outside resource would have been really helpful. Um, Taking on it needs the right person to be able to do that on an ongoing basis, I think. Um, who can really help support people's other stresses without taking it on for themselves. And I was not that person. I just wanted to take it all on for them, every little bit of it. I remember very distinctly, I had one technician whose family did not believe in mental health like issues at all. And so I really was her only resource at the time who was willing to like really listen to her and also give her advice on who to talk to and where to go that didn't need parental approval because she was so young. She was only like 19 or something like that. Just a baby. And I mean, just seeing her shift over the years. She still works at the company that I used to work for. So she's still trucking along and doing great, but really she just needed that extra resource during that tough time. And if I had had a counseling program to offer, I think that would have been exponentially better than just me being the person that she came to.
And
Um,
also, maybe, going back to culture, does your culture support, open conversations about mental health? I know in some places I've heard, that they kind of like what you said, Aja, her parents didn't necessarily believe, but there's some work environments out there where they don't think that mental health should be brought into the workplace. So does your culture have it opened for your technicians to talk to you about these things, to be open about these things?
yeah, and then that's important too, because if is your culture based around this? And if not, how are we hiring to find the right people that also don't need this necessarily. So if this is like something where like, nope, this isn't going to be possible, or this isn't even something that I want to do, then how are you hiring to your culture? What are you doing to make sure that you're finding the right people who don't need that type of support or don't want that type of support from their workplace? Susan asked, I'm considering paying for monthly massages for technicians, working it out with a massage studio and what we can afford and how to track it. Just an idea. I love it. I've also seen
That's awesome.
people, buying massage chairs for the office for people to use, though more people are moving to remote solos, so that's not quite as helpful. But yeah, massages, car washes, like car detailing things. There's just like really small little things that can oil changes is a big one. Um, we used to, I see a couple of people who provide an oil change every certain months. They don't pay for gas, but they'll help with some of that maintenance cost, which can help with stress. I honestly bought a new car to avoid doing an oil change once. I'm not even joking. My current car right now, I was on the way to get an oil change and it felt less stressful to just drive to the car lot at that time. I mean, I was
Starting
already
over.
thinking about it, but I really did not want to get an oil change like that much. I bought a new car instead. I don't recommend that to anybody else. I hope everybody else is getting a good kick out of that one. Oh man, I still have that car. I've only done it once, okay? I still have the car that I traded in instead of an oil change. That is still my daily driver as I sit at my house. All right. Um, so this is probably the most obvious one, and in terms of when people are trying to reduce absences, they are like, we need to do something with our attendance policy. I absolutely agree. There should always be a good foundation of attendance policy that is being followed consistently and making sure that there's not any favoritism being built into the attendance policy. So track your absences. If you're using MaidCentral, it already is monitoring your absences. Your technicians are requesting their time off through the portal, through the system, or should be. If they're not, then you need to start doing it that way. This can help you identify patterns and address recurring issues proactively. So I had just another story because this is my favorite thing to talk about, is helping manage technicians and making them feel better at work. This and scheduling, but I had one technician who I noticed was calling out like on a monthly basis. And so, sorry for any dudes on the call, but I was like, is this something about your monthly cycle? Or are you just having a really hard time? And she's like, no, that's not even close to that. I'm not sure what it is. And I was like, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we plan for you to have that day off? And we're going to plan for you have a day off once a month for the next 6 months. And we'll see how you feel after that. If we want to keep doing that, we can. If we want to stop it, we can. But it seems like you're hitting a burnout cycle every 4 weeks that you're hitting a burnout and you just need an extra day off. And sometimes it's just having that extra day to look forward to keep people coming to work. I always used to notice the people that were calling out of work more often than not were the ones that didn't request time off. And that was such an eye-opening um observation for me because it really was just like they don't have anything to look for. They don't have look forward to as far as a day off goes. They don't have anything being like, oh, I just need to get it through, another couple of days and then, beyond just your regular weekends. Um, and I did that process several times with people where I noticed that they had had a trend of calling out and it seemed like it was following some kind of recurring pattern within a couple of call outs that it was like, all right, why don't we just plan for it? Like, we'll just do this together. We're going to plan for you to have that day off. If you decide you want to come in, just shoot me a text. I'm sure I'll be able to find something for you to do. For the other people that
Yeah.
did call out, I'm sure I can find you something to do that day. But for the time being, maybe we should just plan for it to help you out. Having a clear attendance policy, making sure that there are expectations, consequences, and support for legitimate absences. So Having some sort of even virtual doctor care can be really helpful with this, or virtual nursing system, that when people are actually sick, they have a resource to go to help them be better. Make sure it is fair and consistently enforced. Um, that's the hard part. We can't make decisions because we're having a tough time. We've got to enforce it consistently, no matter what the situation may be. That's, I think, the hard part that people, because once you start making excuses and letting people get out of the consequences that are set out, you either need to change the policy for everybody, or other people are going to start noticing. And then progressive discipline to help address habitual absenteeism. So I've got one more big slide on employee engagement and growth. Most of the other strategies that we're talking about are how to create a better work environment to reduce absenteeism across the board. But having a good progressive discipline process to deal with the one person who tends to be the issue, utilizing warnings and different training and counseling as needed, before escalating to more serious consequences. Um, Ooh, I had a thought there and I lost it. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Um, Absolutely. So the next one is employee engagement and growth. So having a place for your people to feel important, and knowing what their career could look like with your company. And we don't necessarily have a lot of career cleaners as much as maybe we used to, but we still want their time with us to feel, or to also just to find the people who do want to make it into a career, they can do the whole ladder. So offering training, professional development, clear progression pathways. I love going into people's offices and seeing their career ladder on the wall. That's one of my favorite things to see in people's offices, where you can see, starts with a trainee and then a team member and then a field supervisor and a trainer and all of the above, and it just keeps going and going and going. And then they also have their career ladder for the office staff as well. I love that. I think it really helps people know where they stand and where they can go. Um, and feeling like they're growing with the company, they're more likely to stay motivated and engaged when they really feel like they're working towards something and it's not just another day. Involve them in decisions. I really love this, having some place where they can be involved in the changes that are happening around the company fosters a sense of ownership and responsibility for their work. One of my favorite easy ways to involve people with our technicians and decisions is when somebody requests them, um, and maybe there's not really any good drive options, offering it to the technician before just assigning it to them. Being like, hey, you cleaned for Miss Simpson yesterday. She really liked you. Unfortunately, the only day that you have availability is not a great drive. Are you okay making this drive on a regular basis? They're usually going to say yes. And not only are they going to like that you asked them, they're going to really like the fact that they got to keep a customer who really liked them. They're more likely to get higher tips. So they're really just going to feel better overall. And they got to be involved in a little bit about their work beyond just cleaning. I think that's one of the things that is tough about this type of work, is that, yes, you don't have a manager over your shoulder all the time, but you also don't have a manager all the time to praise you where you're working. You're really working out and about, and your own positivity is dependent on yourself and not necessarily all the people around you.
I think also when a technician has a regular, or someone has requested, a client has requested a technician, they're less likely to call out on those days because they don't want to disappoint their regular or miss out on that conversation or miss out on that tip. So that just benefits, again, kind of lowering the absences.
Absolutely. Tammy said that she pays their technicians to stay home one day a month. We call it mental health days, and I love that.
Love it.
Um, I wish, that it was more common in just our country in general to have like a 3-day weekend once a month. Like it doesn't have to be, necessary that we switch to a 4-day work week, but just once a month, just an extra day once a month. That, it just kind of becomes the norm where it's not a 20-day work month, it's a 19-day work month. It's not a huge change, but it's a little one, and it really does help people just with that, like looking forward to a day off is just so big. Like we're in one of our longer times without a day off again, or like a planned day off, where Thanksgiving in the US is our next one. Um, and that's still a couple of months away, or I guess it's 2 months away almost to the day because we're at the beginning of October. But anyways, um, yeah, there's definitely some fun ways to make this work. I love having an extra day off once a month for mental health days. Is a paid mental health day the same as PTO? Um, Depends on how you're doing it. It can be, but it probably wouldn't be. It would probably be additional to their PTO, is usually how I would see that being used. Okay. So all this comes back to a culture of consistency. This is some of the technician side of how they impact consistency and really helping them understand when they are when they are more consistent with when they're coming to work, the more consistent you can be for them as well. And that's just the cherry on top kind of thing there. So we talked about how we keep how our customers impact consistency with skips and reschedules, and the company can affects consistency with culture and communication. So our technicians, they have absences and quality isn't one of our core KPIs because that's not a one that drives revenue necessarily, but their quality is more than just cleaning. And quality of service, because they aren't at work, can be a big impact on that culture of consistency. For anybody who uses MaidCentral, here are the activities that you can do within MaidCentral to drive your absentee rate up. So using MaidCentral to set your attendance policy settings, MaidCentral automatically tracks your attendance policy on a 6-month rolling period. So if your attendance policy doesn't already fit within that, make an easy adjustment so that you're not having to manually track attendance, and can use a system like MaidCentral to let you know when somebody is pushing past the allowed amount of absences in a 6-month period. Set up PTO accrual, turn on future visible jobs to technicians. I have a soapbox and we only have 2 minutes, but I have a really quick soapbox to go on really fast about this. So I absolutely believe that everybody should have this feature turned on where technicians can see their future jobs for at least a week in advance. And the reason for that is because of mental preparation for hard days and for good days is different. So when a technician is able to look in the future and see that they have a big one-time job, a lot of times people are like, oh, they're just going to call out because they have a one-time job. And sure, you might have a small percentage that does. They're not a right fit for your company to begin with. But for everybody else who likes what they do and generally doesn't have a bad time with those ones, they've just been given the opportunity to take a couple of days to prepare for that hard day, to bring extra snacks with them when they come to work. Just those little things that help people feel like they have a little bit more control over their work than they did previously. I think this feature is vastly underutilized. Anyways, that was my soapbox. All right. So using the incentive pay models for things like attendance bonuses and pay for performance models, encourage technicians to use their portal. Again, it just makes them have to go in to request their time off. That will warn them when they are getting close to the maximum. Um, Using emojis in the team and technician names to segment technicians. So if somebody can only work till a certain time, maybe putting a, big, I don't know, maybe the do not circle on them so that it's really obvious that they have to be off at a certain time or something like that. But you can segment technicians for being part-time. You can also do it to mark their positions. You could give them crowns and stars for being a trainer or a team lead or something like that. And that's just one way to show recognition that costs literally nothing. Enable all the tipping features. Add pictures and bios to their MaidCentral profiles. Again, it just helps them feel like they mean something, that they matter as an individual. Utilizing employee campaigns to communicate with your technicians regularly. And then the last one is using notes for reminders. So you can put a note into a technician portal or profile and set it to remind you on a specific day. And you can use this for birthdays or anniversaries or even just quick check-ins. And you can set them and remind yourself and then snooze them, and it can keep going for as long as you want it to. Just a couple more to finish up here. As always, toolbox.maidcentral.com is available to anybody, whether you're a MaidCentral user or not. I did a little example here with just reducing our absentee rate to about the average and actually just above the average. And it was almost $100,000 additional capacity to clean by reducing that one. That's a lot for for anybody. That's a manager, you know. There's a lot of good things that we can do with that. We can put it back into bonus programs and things like that. Um, so don't underestimate the impact of absentee rate. We have a couple other tools on there, the profit planning tool and the performance pay calculators if you're interested in changing how you pay. Um, uh, and I recommend taking a look at that growth comparison tool at least once a quarter. We just started a new quarter. We are into the fourth quarter of 2024. Can you believe it? Well, we are. And that means that we need to start doing some quarterly planning. Everybody, I should be seeing record amounts of growth comparison tool logins over the next couple of weeks as people do their quarterly planning. So break into it. It's really, really important and very helpful. I believe we answered all the questions. So we went a couple of minutes over, but we are all set. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Vic, for being my co-host. I was very
Absolutely.
appreciative of you jumping
I'm
in with me.
I'd love to be here anytime.
Fantastic. I'll keep that in mind. All right. So thanks everybody. We'll be back here in a month to talk about technician turnover. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.